Growing up, Jack had always felt like the lesser son. From the outside, everything seemed perfect. His family was wealthy, well-respected in their community, and they lived in a beautiful house in an upscale neighborhood. But beneath the surface, Jack's reality was far from perfect. Jack's older brother, Ryan, was the golden child. He was everything their parents had ever wanted in a son: charming, ambitious, and always living up to the high expectations set before him. Ryan was the one who always got the most attention, the best opportunities, and the most love from their parents. He was the one who had inherited their father's business acumen and their mother's social grace. Jack, in contrast, was the quiet one, the one who preferred staying out of the limelight. He was more of an introvert, content with a modest life, and not as driven to make a name for himself. Even though Jack had always been there for his parents, helping out in their times of need, they never seemed to notice. The love he had for his family was often met with indifference. Jack's achievements, though significant, were hardly acknowledged. Every significant event, every victory, seemed to be overshadowed by Ryan's accomplishments. As they grew older, this dynamic only deepened. Jack worked hard in school, went to a solid college, and landed a decent job, but it was never enough. His parents were always too busy praising Ryan's business ventures or social triumphs to notice his efforts. Jack felt like a shadow in his own home, constantly overshadowed by his brother's larger-than-life presence. The resentment simmered beneath the surface, but Jack never expressed it openly. He was taught to respect his parents, to honor their wishes, and to always put family first. And so, despite feeling like an afterthought in his own family, Jack never spoke up. He just accepted his role as the quiet, dependable son. But everything changed one fateful day. It started with a simple phone call from the family lawyer. "Mr. Thompson," the lawyer said, his voice calm yet firm, "I need you to come by the office. There's something important we need to discuss regarding your parents' estate." Jack had been busy with work, but something about the tone of the lawyer's voice made his stomach churn. It wasn't just a regular estate update. It sounded like something serious. Jack's mind raced. Why had the lawyer called him, of all people? Was there something wrong with the family business? He couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was off. When Jack arrived at the lawyer's office, he found himself sitting in front of a neatly stacked pile of legal documents. The lawyer, a middle-aged man with glasses and a calm demeanor, handed Jack a large envelope. "Your parents' will has been finalized," the lawyer began. "Everything has been distributed according to their wishes." Jack's heart raced. This was it. This was the moment he'd been dreading. He tried to remain composed, but inside, his mind was already preparing for the worst. The lawyer continued. "According to the will, your brother Ryan is to inherit everything. The family estate, the business, everything your parents worked for. They wanted Ryan to carry on their legacy." Jack's hands trembled as he took the envelope. He could feel his blood pressure rising. This wasn't surprising. He had always known his parents favored Ryan. But to hear it confirmed so bluntly, in such black and white terms, felt like a gut punch. "Jack," the lawyer said, noticing Jack's reaction, "I understand this may be difficult for you to hear, but your parents were very clear about their intentions." Jack sat back in his chair, trying to absorb the information. "But why? Why Ryan?" The lawyer hesitated for a moment before answering. "You know, your parents believed Ryan was the one best suited to lead the family business. He had the drive, the connections, and the expertise. They trusted him to make the right decisions for the future." Jack's chest tightened as the words hit him like a wave. He had been there for his parents in ways Ryan never had. He had supported them, taken care of them, and put his own dreams on hold to make sure they were taken care of. And now, in the end, it was Ryan who reaped all the rewards. "Is there anything left for me?" Jack asked, his voice barely above a whisper. He wasn't sure what he was hoping for, but he needed to know if there was any recognition, any acknowledgement of his efforts. The lawyer's eyes softened. "There is something else," he said, "but it's complicated. Let me explain." And with that, the lawyer revealed a shocking truth. A second will, one that had been drafted years ago, before Ryan had become so involved in the family business. Jack felt his heart skip a beat. The second will, the lawyer said, was never finalized. But it contained provisions that named you as the primary heir to the family estate, including the business and the property. Jack blinked, unable to process the information. His head spun as he tried to understand. "What do you mean? Why wasn't it ever finalized?" The lawyer shook his head. "That's what I need you to understand, Mr. Thompson. There were circumstances that led your parents to change their minds about you. At one point, they believed you were the one who would carry on their legacy. But something happened, something that changed everything." Jack's mind raced, his thoughts swimming in a sea of confusion. What had happened? What had his parents known that had led them to completely reverse their decision about him? He could feel the anger building inside him. Anger not just at Ryan, but at his parents for what they had done to him. The years of favoritism, the years of neglect, had all led to this moment of bitter revelation. Jack was left to deal with the wreckage of a life where he had always been second best. But now the truth was finally coming to light. Jack was the rightful heir, and everything he had ever been denied could finally be his. The following week was a blur of emotions for Jack. Grief over his parents' death still gripped him tightly, but now, anger and confusion added layers to the overwhelming sorrow. For days, he couldn't sleep, his thoughts relentlessly racing back to that meeting with the lawyer. He couldn't shake the feeling that everything he had known about his family, the years of loyalty and hard work, the sacrifices he had made, had been rendered meaningless in one fell swoop. It wasn't just the inheritance that weighed on him. It was the fact that his parents had never truly seen him for who he was, never appreciated him in the way they had Ryan. It was as if his entire existence had been overshadowed by his brother's achievements, and now, even after their death, it seemed like Ryan was still the one with all the power, all the control. Jack had always known that Ryan was the favored son, but knowing it in his heart and hearing it confirmed by the lawyer were two entirely different things. The legal documents, the final will, these were cold, hard facts. His parents had chosen Ryan to carry on their legacy, to lead the family business. And while Jack had been cast aside, left to pick up the pieces of a family that never truly valued him, Ryan had been given everything. The inheritance, the power, the future. It wasn't just about money anymore. Jack had reached a point where he no longer cared about the wealth or property that Ryan was going to inherit. What hurt the most was that he had spent his life working for his family, sacrificing his own dreams, never questioning why they didn't seem to care about him the way they cared about Ryan. And now, even after their passing, it seemed like nothing had changed. The funeral was a somber affair. Jack stood at the back, trying to hold it together as his parents' caskets were lowered into the ground. He watched Ryan stand at the front, his usual air of confidence almost suffocating in the weight of the moment. Ryan gave a brief eulogy, speaking of their parents with praise and admiration, painting a picture of a perfect family, a perfect legacy. Jack couldn't bring himself to listen to Ryan's words. They felt empty, hollow. All Jack could think about was the years of being overlooked, the years of trying to be the good son, trying to do the right thing, only to realize that it was all in vain. After the funeral, as family and friends gathered in the house for a reception, Jack felt increasingly out of place. The familiar faces, the same people who had watched him grow up, now seemed distant. His parents' friends, the ones who had always seen him as the quiet, dependable son, now whispered amongst themselves, eyes shifting uncomfortably as they avoided Jack's gaze. It wasn't that they were unkind. It was just that, like Jack, they too had always seen Ryan as the one destined for greatness. And now that Ryan was the official heir, Jack was no longer the son they needed to look after. He was a mere afterthought, just like he had always been. Jack wandered through the house, his footsteps echoing in the silence. He found himself standing in front of his parents' study, a room that had always been off-limits to him as a child. As he entered, he saw the familiar desk, the leather chair, the family portraits that lined the walls. It was a place where his parents had spent countless hours running their business, managing their wealth, and making the decisions that had shaped their lives. There, on the desk, was a folder marked with his name. Jack hesitated for a moment before walking over to it. His heart pounded in his chest as he reached for the folder and opened it. Inside were more documents, letters, financial statements, and something that caught his eye, a handwritten note from his mother. He read the note slowly, his eyes widening as the words sank in. Jack, my dear, I've always known you would carry on our legacy in your own way. You have the heart, the strength, and the wisdom. But the world has changed. We've made decisions that will keep the family intact, for better or for worse. Please understand that this is not about favoring Ryan. It's about what we believed was best for all of us. You have always been the steady one, the one who holds us together, and I will always be proud of you, no matter what. The words hit Jack like a ton of bricks. His mother had known. She had always known that Jack was the one with the true heart for the family legacy. But she had allowed Ryan to take it all. Why? Why had she allowed this injustice to happen? As Jack stood there, the weight of the letter settled heavily in his chest. He had always been the one who took care of things, who kept the family together, who supported his parents when they needed him the most. And yet, his mother's words seemed to confirm that, in the end, it had all been for nothing. Just as Jack was about to put the letter back, he heard the sound of footsteps behind him. He turned to find Ryan standing in the doorway, his face unreadable. "You're going through Mom's things," Ryan said quietly, his voice almost apologetic. "I guess you found the note." Jack couldn't bring himself to speak at first. The anger, the betrayal, everything he had felt over the years was bubbling to the surface. But he swallowed it down, taking a deep breath. "I don't know what to say, Ryan," Jack finally said, his voice trembling. I always thought that if I just worked hard enough, if I just did enough, I would finally get the recognition I deserved. But now I see that it was never going to happen. I wasn't the son you wanted me to be. I wasn't the son Mom and Dad wanted me to be." Ryan stepped into the room, his expression softening. "Jack, I never meant for this to happen," he said quietly. "I didn't ask for any of this. The business, the house, everything, none of it was ever my choice. Mom and Dad made their decisions, and I just tried to honor them." Jack looked at Ryan, his brother, the man who had been given everything. "But you knew that they were pushing me aside. You knew that I was the one who was always there, always helping, always supporting. And yet, you took everything. You let them make me feel like I was nothing." Ryan looked down, guilt flickering across his face. "I didn't want to hurt you. I never wanted to make you feel like this. But I was just trying to do what they asked. I thought I was doing the right thing." Jack took a step back, his emotions overwhelming him. "Maybe you were doing what they asked, but you weren't doing the right thing. You didn't care about me. You never did." With those words, Jack turned and walked out of the room, leaving his brother behind. The walls that had once held his family together now felt cold, distant, and broken. Jack knew that everything was about to change. The family legacy that had once been a source of pride now felt like a prison. And in that moment, he couldn't help but wonder if he had ever truly been part of that legacy to begin with. A week had passed since the funeral, and Jack was still struggling to come to terms with everything. He spent most of his days at home, barely able to focus on anything. The house felt empty, despite the memories of laughter and family gatherings. His parents were gone, leaving behind an inheritance and a legacy that seemed to be falling into the wrong hands. His brother, Ryan, was now the rightful heir to everything, but Jack couldn't help but feel that his life had been turned upside down, without a moment's notice or explanation. Then, one afternoon, Jack received an email from the family lawyer, Mr. Hanson. It was brief but to the point. "Mr. Thompson, please come to my office at your earliest convenience. There are some important matters regarding your family's estate that need to be discussed." Jack's heart skipped a beat. He had been dreading this moment, but now that it was here, he wasn't sure if he was ready for whatever revelations were to come. He stared at the email for several minutes before finally deciding to make the drive to Mr. Hanson's office. When Jack arrived, he was greeted by the receptionist and shown to a small conference room where Mr. Hanson was waiting. The lawyer was in his mid-60s, with a stern demeanor and an air of professionalism that made him both comforting and intimidating. "Mr. Thompson," the lawyer said, offering a seat. "Thank you for coming. I know this is a difficult time for you, but there are some matters that need to be addressed regarding your parents' estate." Jack nodded and sat down, his stomach twisting with a mix of apprehension and anger. He had no idea what was coming next, but he knew it wasn't going to be easy to hear. "Your parents made specific provisions in their will," Mr. Hanson began, pulling out a large folder from his desk drawer. "As you know, your brother Ryan is the primary beneficiary of the family business and estate. But there is something else in the will that you should be made aware of." Jack's mind raced. What could it be? Had his parents done something else that he didn't know about? Was there more than just the inheritance that Ryan had received? Mr. Hanson continued, his voice measured but carrying a sense of urgency. "Your parents were always concerned about the future of the business and wanted to ensure that their legacy was passed on in a way that was fair to everyone involved. However, they were also aware of certain issues within the family dynamics, issues that were not immediately apparent to outsiders." Jack leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. "What do you mean?" he asked. "Your parents recognized the contributions you made to the family business over the years," the lawyer said slowly. "But there was something they wanted to make clear in their will, a provision that was overlooked by most people, including Ryan." Jack's pulse quickened. What was he saying? His parents had always treated him like a secondary figure in their business. Could it be that they had something in mind for him after all? "The provision in question," Mr. Hanson continued, "was a secret trust created specifically for you. It was a measure to ensure that you would not be left without anything once the estate was divided. The trust was not made public, and Ryan was not informed about it. Your parents wanted you to have the option to take control of a portion of the estate, independent of Ryan, if you so chose." Jack stared at the lawyer, stunned. He hadn't expected this. Not in a million years. A secret trust? A portion of the estate for him. Something his parents had apparently set aside in case he ever decided to take control? "But why didn't they tell me?" Jack asked, his voice shaking. "Why didn't they mention it to me? Why didn't they tell me I had an option?" Mr. Hanson paused, adjusting his glasses. "Your parents knew you had always been the more independent one, Jack. They believed that you would never ask for it, that you would never want to take control. They thought that you would be content to live your life outside of the family business. But they made sure, in case you ever needed it, that you had a way to step in and secure your future." Jack shook his head, the weight of the news sinking in. "So, what does this mean? What do I do now?" "The decision is ultimately yours," Mr. Hanson said gently. "You can either accept the trust and take control of your share of the estate, or you can allow Ryan to maintain full control. The choice is yours." Jack's mind was racing. He had always felt like an outsider in his own family. But now, for the first time, there was a glimmer of hope. A path forward that didn't involve Ryan and his shadow. For the first time, he was given the chance to shape his own future. But it wasn't going to be easy. There would be resistance, there would be consequences, and there would be no going back once he made his choice. Jack had spent his entire life in the background, supporting his family and his brother, always putting others' needs ahead of his own. But now, the opportunity was in front of him to finally stand up and take control of his life. Jack stood up from his chair, his hands trembling. "I need time to think about this," he said quietly. "This is a lot to take in." Mr. Hanson nodded. "Of course. Take as much time as you need. Just remember that the decision is yours. It's never too late to claim what's rightfully yours." As Jack left the office, his mind was in turmoil. He had always believed that his future was set in stone, that his place was always going to be secondary to Ryan's. But now, everything had changed. The question was, what would he do with this newfound power? Would he step up and take control of his own future, or would he continue to let Ryan dictate his life? The choice was his, and it was going to be the hardest decision he had ever made. The drive home from Mr. Hanson's office felt endless. Jack's mind was clouded, his thoughts spiraling in every direction. The weight of the decision ahead of him pressed heavily on his chest. A secret trust, an inheritance that had always been out of his reach, yet now it was within his grasp. For years, Jack had lived in Ryan's shadow, quietly supporting the family business, quietly playing the role of the backup plan. But now he was being offered a chance to step forward, to claim what was rightfully his. But the question lingered in his mind. Did he want it? As he sat at a red light, his hands gripping the steering wheel, memories flooded his mind. Growing up, Jack had always been the responsible one, the one who kept the peace. Ryan had been the golden child, the one with the charm, the ambition, and the drive to succeed. He had always known that Ryan would take over the family business, and Jack had accepted it. He had chosen his own path, one that didn't involve the pressure of running a company, of carrying on the family name. But now, with the secret trust in front of him, everything was different. He arrived home to an empty house. His wife, Claire, was out with friends, and their daughter, Sophie, was at a playdate. Jack stood in the doorway of the living room, staring at the familiar surroundings, the place he had always called home. It didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a reminder of everything he had put aside, everything he had sacrificed. He had always told himself he was fine with it, that he didn't need the family business. But now that he had the opportunity to take control, everything felt different. Jack collapsed onto the couch, his head in his hands. The weight of his parents' legacy felt like a burden, but it also felt like freedom. The freedom to make his own choices. To stop living in Ryan's shadow. To stop being the backup plan. He thought about his parents, about their hopes for him, their quiet belief that he could do something great if given the chance. He had always thought they were proud of him, but was that true? Or had they just been resigned to the fact that he would never seek the spotlight? The phone on the coffee table buzzed, pulling him from his thoughts. It was a text from Claire. "Hey, I'm coming home soon. We need to talk. It's important." Jack stared at the message for a moment. Was it about the trust? Was she already aware of what he had learned? His heart raced as he quickly typed a response. "What's going on?" The reply came a few seconds later. "I'll explain when I get home. Just please be here." 1,000 thoughts raced through his mind. What was she going to say? Did she know? Could she possibly be as torn about this as he was? As he waited for her return, Jack walked over to the window, looking out at the street below. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the yard. It was a peaceful moment, but the calmness felt like an illusion. The storm inside him was growing, a storm of uncertainty, fear, and doubt. By the time Claire walked through the door, Jack had already made up his mind. The decision had come to him in a quiet moment of reflection. He had spent his entire life standing back, letting others take the lead. But now it was his time. His time to make a choice that would shape the rest of his life. Claire walked in, her eyes full of concern. She could see the weight on Jack's shoulders, the exhaustion in his posture. She set her bag down and sat beside him on the couch, her hand gently resting on his. "Jack," she said softly, "what's going on? You've been distant all day. What's bothering you?" Jack took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. He looked at his wife, the woman who had stood by him through thick and thin. She deserved to know. "Claire," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I found out something today. Something about my parents' will. There's a trust, a secret one, and it's mine. They left me a portion of the estate. The family business. They wanted me to have a choice. To step in if I wanted to." Claire's eyes widened in shock. "Wait, what? A trust? For you?" Jack nodded. "Yeah, I've been given the chance to take control, to be part of the business, to step into the role that I've always been on the outside of. But I don't know what to do. I've spent my whole life avoiding this, and now it's right in front of me. I have the chance to make something of myself, but I'm scared. I'm scared of what it means for our future. For everything we've built." Claire was silent for a moment, her eyes searching his. "Jack, this is huge. But you've always been so selfless. You've always put everyone else first. Maybe this is your chance to finally put yourself first. To take control of your future." Jack looked at her, his throat tight with emotion. "But Ryan, he's always been the one to run the business. He's the one everyone expects to lead. What if I mess this up? What if I'm not the right person for this?" Claire took his hand, squeezing it gently. "Jack, you've always been the steady one. You're smart, capable, and you've proven time and time again that you can handle anything that comes your way. If this is what you want, then you need to go for it. For yourself and for our future." Jack stared at her, a sense of calm beginning to wash over him. Maybe Claire was right. Maybe it was time to stop being afraid of what could go wrong and start thinking about what could go right. With a deep breath, Jack stood up. "I think I'm going to do it. I'm going to take control of the trust. I'm going to step into the role my parents set for me. It's time I stop living in Ryan's shadow. It's time to take my life into my own hands." Claire smiled, her eyes filled with pride. "I'm so proud of you, Jack. Whatever happens, we'll figure it out together." And for the first time in a long while, Jack felt a sense of clarity. The path ahead wouldn't be easy, but it was his to walk. The decision was made. Now, all that was left was to see what came next. The days following Jack's decision were a whirlwind. He had made the choice to take control of the trust, but now the hard part began. What had seemed like a clear path to a brighter future was quickly becoming a tangled web of emotions, alliances, and doubts. The first step was meeting with his parents' attorneys to officially claim his share of the inheritance. As he sat in Mr. Hansen's office again, the weight of the room seemed to press down on him. His parents' presence felt more distant than ever, and the silence between him and the lawyer was almost suffocating. "Jack," Mr. Hansen said, breaking the tension. "You've made the decision, and I respect that. But I must warn you, stepping into the family business is not as simple as you might think. Your brother has been running it for years, and there are people in place who are loyal to him, not you." Jack nodded, the reality sinking in. Ryan had spent years building relationships, making deals, and gaining the trust of everyone involved. He wasn't just inheriting a business, he was stepping into a system already in place, one that had been designed with Ryan in mind. "But I don't have a choice, do I?" Jack responded, his voice a little more firm than he had intended. "I've made my decision. I have to see it through." Mr. Hansen sighed. "It's not that simple, Jack. This isn't just about the inheritance, it's about the future of the business. And I'm afraid you're going to face a lot of resistance, especially from your brother." The word stung, but Jack didn't back down. He was determined to prove that he was more than just the backup plan. His parents had trusted him with this opportunity, and he wasn't going to let them down. Leaving the office, Jack felt a sense of resolve settle over him. The road ahead would be rocky, but he was ready. Or at least he told himself that. That evening, he sat at the dinner table with Claire. Sophie was already asleep, and the two of them sat in comfortable silence for a few moments. Jack was lost in thought, thinking about his next move. "You're quiet tonight," Claire said softly, her eyes filled with concern. Jack looked up, offering her a small smile. "Just thinking about everything. About the business, about Ryan. It's all so complicated." Claire nodded, understanding. "I know it's not easy, Jack. But you've always been strong. You've always made the right decisions." Jack reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "I hope so. I hope I can live up to everyone's expectations. I don't want to disappoint anyone." "You won't," Claire assured him. "But don't forget about us in the process. We're a team. No matter what happens, we'll face it together." Her words were a comforting reminder of what truly mattered. The business, the inheritance, the trust, none of it would mean anything if he lost sight of what was important. His family was his anchor, and he needed to hold on to that as he navigated this new chapter. The next few days were a blur of meetings and phone calls. Jack was thrust into the world of corporate decisions, financial reports, and business strategy. But no matter how much he tried to focus on the tasks at hand, his thoughts kept returning to Ryan. His brother hadn't made a single attempt to reach out. Not to congratulate him, not to discuss the transition, nothing. It wasn't like Ryan to stay quiet for this long. Jack had always known him to be driven, ambitious, and competitive. This silence, it was unsettling. And Jack couldn't help but wonder if Ryan was planning something, if he was going to fight for what he believed was rightfully his. Jack's suspicions were confirmed when he received a call from one of the company's top executives. "Mr. Thompson," the voice on the other end said, "Ryan's asked for an emergency meeting. He's requesting that you meet with him tomorrow. He wants to discuss the future of the company." Jack's heart skipped a beat. This was it, the confrontation he had been dreading. The next day, he arrived at the family's corporate headquarters, feeling a mixture of nerves and determination. He had to face Ryan, and he had to be prepared for whatever came next. As he entered the conference room, he saw his brother sitting at the head of the table, looking every bit the part of the successful business leader. Ryan was dressed in a sharp suit, his usual confidence radiating from him. But his eyes, cold and calculating, never left Jack as he took a seat across from him. "I hear you've decided to step into my shoes," Ryan said, his voice low and measured. "Tell me, Jack, do you really think you're capable of running this company? Do you think you can live up to what our parents built?" Jack's jaw tightened. "I'm not here to live in your shadow anymore, Ryan. This is my chance to prove myself, and I'm not backing down." Ryan leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "You think it's that easy? That you can just walk in here and take over? You don't have the experience, Jack. You've been playing the role of the sidekick for years. But now you want the throne. It doesn't work like that." Jack's heart raced, but he refused to back down. "I'm not asking for the throne. I'm asking for a chance. I've been given an opportunity to run this company, and I intend to make the most of it. If you think I'm not capable, then let's see who's right." Ryan chuckled, his expression icy. "Fine. Let's see. But don't say I didn't warn you." The tension in the room was palpable. Jack knew this was only the beginning of what would be a long and difficult battle. But he was ready. He had made his decision, and he wasn't going to let Ryan, or anyone else, stop him from taking control of his future. Jack sat at his desk in the office, staring out the large window that overlooked the city. The office was sleek, modern, and full of potential, but Jack didn't feel the excitement that he expected. The weight of his decision to take control of the company was beginning to settle in. He wasn't just carrying the legacy of his parents anymore. Now, he was responsible for the livelihoods of hundreds of employees, the future of a multimillion-dollar business, and most importantly, his own future. But it wasn't the pressure of the work that was keeping him awake at night. It was Ryan. Ryan's words in their meeting echoed in his mind. "You don't have the experience, Jack. You've been playing the role of the sidekick for years." There was a coldness to his tone that Jack couldn't shake off. It was as if his brother had already written him off as someone unworthy, someone who didn't belong at the helm of the company. But Jack couldn't allow himself to be defined by his brother's dismissive attitude. He had spent his entire life in Ryan's shadow, but that was about to change. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Jack spent long hours at the office, meeting with investors, analyzing reports, and strategizing for the future. He was learning quickly, but the more he learned, the more he realized just how much he didn't know. Every decision felt like a gamble, and every mistake had the potential to cost him everything. But Jack wasn't afraid of hard work. He had always been driven, even when he was younger, trying to prove himself worthy of his parents' attention. But despite his best efforts, Jack couldn't ignore the growing tension between him and Ryan. His brother's silence was deafening. No matter how many times Jack reached out, Ryan refused to meet him or even answer his calls. It was as if Ryan had retreated into a shell, waiting for Jack to fail so he could swoop in and reclaim what he believed was his. Jack wasn't about to make it that easy for him. It was late one night when Jack received an unexpected email. He had just finished reviewing some financial reports and was preparing to head home when he saw the message from the company's legal department. He opened it, expecting the usual updates about contracts or upcoming board meetings, but what he found made his heart race. Urgent, legal issue regarding the will and trust. The email contained a brief message and an attachment labeled Thompson Family Trust Addendum. Jack clicked on the file, his hands trembling slightly. As the document loaded, he scanned it quickly, his mind racing as he tried to make sense of what he was reading. The addendum was a revision to the original will, and it contained shocking information. According to the legal documents, his parents had secretly altered their will just a year before they died. While the original will had clearly named Ryan as the sole heir to the family business, the new will stated that if Jack chose to take control of the company, he would be entitled to a significant portion of the inheritance, something his parents had never disclosed to him. Jack's heart pounded in his chest. Why hadn't anyone told him about this? Why had Ryan been kept in the dark? A sickening feeling spread through him as he realized that his parents had kept this secret from both him and Ryan. The only explanation was that they had never intended for either of them to inherit the business in the way they had. There was a bigger, more complex plan at play here, one that Jack and Ryan had both been unknowingly excluded from. Jack sat back in his chair, stunned. This was more than just a business deal. This was about the legacy of the Thompson family, and now Jack knew that he was part of a much larger story than he had ever imagined. The next morning, Jack called a meeting with the legal team to discuss the implications of the new will. As he sat at the table with his advisors, his mind was racing. He knew that this revelation changed everything, but he wasn't sure how it would play out with Ryan, or what Ryan's reaction would be when he found out. Later that day, Jack finally received a call from his brother. Ryan's voice was colder than usual. "What is this I'm hearing, Jack?" Ryan demanded, his tone sharp. "You've gone behind my back, and now you're telling me that the will has changed? Why wasn't I informed about this? Why didn't anyone tell me?" Jack stood up from his desk, his fists clenched. "I didn't know, Ryan. But I'm finding out just like you are. Our parents made some changes, and I don't know why they kept it a secret. But this is bigger than both of us. We need to figure out what this means for the future of the company." Ryan's voice faltered for a moment before hardening again. "You think I don't know that? You think I haven't been preparing for this moment? This business is mine, Jack. It always has been." Jack's heart sank. He had hoped, even for a moment, that Ryan would be willing to work together. But it was clear now that his brother wasn't going to give up without a fight. "I'm not here to take anything from you, Ryan," Jack said, his voice steady despite the tension. "I'm here to do what our parents wanted. But if you think you can intimidate me or push me out, you're wrong. This isn't just about you anymore." Ryan's silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely a whisper. "We'll see, Jack. We'll see who gets what in the end." The call ended abruptly, leaving Jack standing there, unsure of what to expect next. His brother had made it clear that he wouldn't go down without a fight, and Jack wasn't sure whether he was prepared for the battle that lay ahead. The days that followed the heated phone call with Ryan were filled with tension and uncertainty. Jack had hoped for a resolution, or at least a sign that he and his brother could work together to salvage the family business. But that hope was quickly dashed. Ryan remained silent, only communicating through his lawyers, each letter and message carrying a subtle threat. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he was being pushed into a corner, with no way out. His brother's grip on the company was firm, and with each passing day, Jack felt the weight of responsibility growing heavier on his shoulders. But Jack refused to let fear dictate his actions. He would fight for his right to take control of the business, just as their parents had intended. One evening, after another long day at the office, Jack sat at his desk, staring at the legal documents spread out before him. The truth about the will, the trust, and the hidden clauses was starting to sink in. He had spent years thinking that he was only a side character in the story of his parents' legacy, but now he was realizing that he had always been at the center of it. His parents had orchestrated everything, right down to the smallest detail. Their secret plan had always been for Jack to take the lead, but they had left him with a choice that no one had bothered to explain until now. Just then, his phone buzzed with a message. It was from the family lawyer, Mark Andrews. "Mark Andrews. Jack, we need to meet. There's something important you need to know." Jack's pulse quickened. What could be so urgent? He quickly texted back, agreeing to meet at his office in an hour. When Mark arrived, he wasted no time getting to the point. Jack, I've reviewed everything. Your parents will trust the assets. There's more to this than you realize, Mark said, his voice low. Jack's confusion deepened. What do you mean? I thought the will was clear. Mark looked around, ensuring no one was eavesdropping. It's not just the will. There's another document, a hidden clause in the trust that no one knew about. Your parents had plans for the company that weren't made public. And you? Jack leaned forward, eager to understand. What are you saying, Mark? What am I missing? Mark took a deep breath. Your parents had planned for you to inherit the company all along. But there was a condition. If you wanted control, you had to prove your worth by building something entirely your own. They wanted you to create your own legacy before taking over theirs. Jack was stunned. What do you mean? Why didn't anyone tell me this? Your parents wanted you to earn it, Jack. They didn't want to just hand you everything on a silver platter. But they had faith in you. They knew that if you worked hard enough, you would create something that would be worthy of taking the reins. Jack's mind was racing. His parents had always pushed him to be better, to prove himself, but this was beyond anything he had expected. So all this time, they were preparing me for something bigger? Mark nodded. Exactly. And now the time has come. You've proven yourself. You've done what they asked. Jack couldn't believe it. All the years of sacrifice, all the late nights spent building the company's brand, the struggles he had faced, he had done it. He had earned his place. But it wasn't just about the business anymore. It was about something deeper. It was about redemption. And in a way, it was about forgiveness, for both himself and for Ryan. The next morning, Jack sat at the kitchen table, a cup of coffee in his hands, staring out the window. He had a lot to think about. He knew that his next move could either make or break everything he had worked for. Ryan would never accept this, but Jack wasn't concerned about that anymore. He had been prepared for this moment his entire life. He couldn't let his brother's anger and resentment control his future. Jack had to take the reins, once and for all. He picked up his phone and dialed Ryan's number. Jack, Ryan's voice answered, cold and distant as ever. I know what you're thinking, Ryan, Jack began, his tone steady. But this is bigger than both of us. It's about our parents' legacy, and I'm going to honor it, just like they wanted me to. Honor it? Ryan spat back. You think I'm just going to let you waltz in and take what's mine? Jack took a deep breath. Ryan, this isn't about you or me. It's about the company. It's about our parents. You can keep fighting this if you want, but it's not going to change anything. I'm the one who's going to carry this company forward. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Jack's heart raced, unsure of how his brother would respond. Finally, Ryan spoke. You really think you're ready for this? You think you're the right choice? I don't just think it, Ryan. I know it, Jack replied firmly. This is my moment, and I'm not going to let anyone take it from me, not even you. Ryan's voice softened for a moment. I never wanted it to be this way, Jack. I never wanted to lose you over something like this. Jack's chest tightened, but he didn't falter. It doesn't have to be this way, Ryan. We're brothers. We don't have to fight, but we do need to move forward. Ryan was quiet again. Jack could almost hear the internal battle raging in his brother's mind. Finally, Ryan spoke. Fine, he said, his voice barely audible. You win. But this isn't over, Jack. Not by a long shot. Jack hung up the phone, feeling a mixture of relief and sadness. The battle was far from over, but this was the first step. He had claimed his place, not just as a businessman, but as a man who would stand by his own decisions. As the days passed, Jack's confidence grew. He made decisions with conviction, always remembering his parents' faith in him. And as for Ryan, he remained distant, but Jack knew that deep down, his brother had come to respect him in a way he hadn't before. The company was now Jack's to lead, and he was ready to take on whatever challenges lay ahead. Jack had always lived in the shadows, waiting for the moment when he could prove himself. Now that moment had arrived. The Thompson family legacy was in his hands, and he was determined to make it thrive.